Hello, everyone, and welcome to my review of one of the most anticipated films of 2017. This is Dunkirk, which I did see tonight in IMAX 70mm film. Very rare occasion do you get to have an experience like this, and this is something that I was looking forward to. It's Christopher Nolan. It's shot on film with IMAX cameras, and we actually get to see it projected on film, which is very rare. And as much as I love the digital era, I love having experiences like this again, and I hope to have a much more in the near future. And as I said before, very excited to see this film. A huge fan of Christopher Nolan and his talent and his work and his all the great skills that he has as a filmmaker, and how he tells stories, and how epic they are, and how exciting they are. Sometimes I hope someday, after now watching this one, I hope one day we get something that is very intense, very epic, but on a smaller scale, like movies like Following and Memento. But of course, I'm a big sucker. I love these big epic war films, and this one was of course not to miss, especially for a fan like me of Christopher Nolan. Now this is, I believe, if I'm thinking correctly, this is the first time that Christopher Nolan has tackled a true story. I'm thinking about his career, possibly. I think so. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I think this is the first time he's tackling war, World War II, real story. But this one's centered around the British officers, Belgium officers, and France officers as they're in Dunkirk, France, and they're trying to get home. I think the main focus of the movie, though, is mainly on the British. This is definitely more of that side of the story, and we get three perspectives of the story. We get to see one perspective of the soldiers on the ground according they were there for a week. And then we get to see a second perspective from the locals that were helping them out. No, sorry. Is it a week? Yes. I think about a week that we get to, the movie's not a week long, but, they're there for about a week as they're experiencing. And then we get to see locals who I believe are experiencing it for about a day or so. And then we get to see the firefighters in the sky for what they experienced for a whole hour. Now, there is a lot of great cast members in this film that include Cillian Murphy and Tom Hardy and Mark Rylance, Kenneth Branagh, many others. It's a huge cast. And Harry Styles from One Direction makes his debut as an actor. So there you go. That's the movie. Of course, we're really there because we love Christopher Nolan. That was the main reason I was there. And also, I'm a big fan of war films. But I was a little worried because the movie is PG-13. I was like, this is World War II. This is epicness. This is a violent war. The war was painful to the human body. So how can they get away with this, making it PG-13? So that was probably my biggest worry, especially if they want to stay true to whatever story this was. And I wasn't familiar with Dunkirk. I think because, as an American, we learn what happened in World War II, especially in school, the American side, whether we're dealing with Japan or the Germans or other forces that were, that we were dealing with in the war. So we learned a lot about that growing up. But for some reason, never heard about this story, Dunkirk. And I was very excited to see this movie because I felt like hopefully I learned something in the process. All right, got all that out of the way. How did I feel about the film? So if you're going to see a movie like this, you have to see it in the way that I saw it tonight. Now, I do have some complaints about it as well, but overall, the true way to see Dunkirk is to really go out of your way and see it in 70mm, see it in IMAX, experience it in this way on film, thankfully not in 3D, because it's not presented that way, but, there are scenes where we get to see a lot of the movie like this, and then it expands all in the widescreen format, so it fits the whole entire screen, and it just looks beautiful, and it's so unique to see it this way and see it on film. So that was great. I will admit, I don't know if it was just my screening, but the movie was extremely loud, and I wanted it to be loud, but not extremely loud. And it kind of, I just had a little too loud when it came to that. But I think that was probably just our screening. Might have not been yours. But it's not a major complaint, just an observation, because I wanted it loud, but it was just a little too loud. The movie looks, of course, great. The cinematographer is the same man that worked on Interstellar, and I know that Christopher Nolan was working with another director or photographer, and now he's working with this one, and it just, it's there's really no difference. It looks like a Christopher Nolan film. It feels like a Christopher Nolan film, and it's just intense. It's exciting. It's emotional from time to time. I wish it was a little bit more. I think near like the final act, it was the most emotional part of the film. But I like the way the movie is told as well. There are three storylines going on here, and they're like a good Christopher Nolan mashup. You want a really good Christopher Nolan movie. The movie is told in different layers, different times. Sometimes those layers kind of hit each other every once in a while. You got to figure out, and at times it can be a little confusing. But overall, when you see it over and over again, like when I saw Memento, probably by the 100th time that I've seen it, I finally got it all down. But I think I still need to learn more from that, because just so much going on the way the movie is told backwards. And also movies like Prestige that I had to see a few times, and Inception, which is of course dream after dream. So I love that Christopher Nolan really challenges you to pay attention, to not leave the theater. Thankfully, the movie is only an hour and 45 minutes or hour and 50 minutes, which is very rare, and it's very nice. Even though I do like these long, big, epic movies, but it's nice that this one is not as long, and it just flows by really fast, and it's really interesting, and by the time it was over, it's like, oh my gosh, it's already over, I can't believe it. So I did appreciate the length of the film. I think if it was a little bit longer, it would have dragged a little bit and taken me out of the experience, but I appreciate the story structure and how it's told. But then at the same time, the characters, it's probably the weakest aspect of this movie, because this movie doesn't really care about characters. Yes, the acting is good all around. Of course, all around it's incredible. But the characters, there's not really a certain character that really stood out for me, even if it was an actor. I mean, I think the actor stood out more than the actual character. But, everybody's great in the film, and the movie's beautifully shot in a perfect way. But at the end, I just felt like I'm not as attached to this movie as I want to be, because I wanted to care about certain characters and understand where they came from, what they're all about a little bit. I find a way to give a little bit of backstory to what's going on, but this movie's not really interested in that. It's more interested in giving you this epic adventure, like the same way that Gravity did in 2013, whereas it's this epic adventure. We don't really get to know a lot of people in the film, but it's the experience overall. Some may enjoy it for those reasons, others may not. I just felt like I could see everything on screen. If there was any use of CGI, I couldn't see it. Everything looks so practical and natural. It feels like they've strapped all these wonderful IMAX cameras on the planes and on the ships and on the people, and there's just great sweeping shots. It's a gorgeous, beautiful film. And I think anybody who may have some problems about the film, and I have a few problems, but overall you can't deny how visually stunning it is, and how raw it feels, and how intense it feels. Even for a PG-13 film, it gets away with it. It does a good job to not be a big, huge gore fest. And I don't mind a big, huge gore fest as long as there's emotion and humanity behind it, especially movies like World War II, movies like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan. It did a convincing job to get that PG-13 and not feel like we're being cheated. I can't imagine there's a director's cut. I think the cut that we saw is the official director's cut of the film. And I think this is a great film, maybe for 15, 14-year-olds that want to learn about war from a different perspective than what maybe we've learned in school, especially from the perspective of American, because this story was very new to me. I think this would be a really great introduction to World War II. I honestly believe that, especially if you're learning in school and you explain all this stuff that's been going on, and now you want to give them a story. And I was also welcome, a younger audience seeing Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. I think they're great films. Yes, they're violent and intense, and there's use of language, but at the same time, there's a lot to learn from these great films. But I think maybe Dunkirk might be a great introduction to a younger audience who may not know much about what their forefathers and foremothers went through so that they could live and survive and enjoy the life that we have today. Great reminder of the military and the importance that they have, the willingness to serve and survive, and it's fascinating to see a different side that we normally don't see at the big screen. See what was going on to the other men and women in the Great War. So I loved this film. I think it's a fabulous film. Christopher Nolan has hit it out of the park once again. He is clearly one of the best living filmmakers ever, and one of the best today. And I look forward to seeing what he does next. I would like to see him do something again on a smaller scale. I'd really appreciate that, because I think whether he's telling a big story or a small story, he can do it in such a way that's so fast and interesting that you just want to watch it again and again and again. I do look forward to seeing this movie again. And of course, I also look forward to going online and learning more about Dunkirk, the true story itself. So Hans Zimmer's score is just one of the best that he's ever created. It resonated with me and just gave us another level of intensity throughout the entire film. So please, of course, you're going to go see this film. Whether I liked it or not, you're going to watch this movie. And there's just so much love and attention and care and true filmmaking going on to this film. There's a few filmmakers I'm not going to name can learn a lot from Mr. Nolan. All right, everyone, I am going to give... Oh, I forgot to mention. Look at this. I forgot to mention. I got... Because I went to the theater to see it in IMAX 70mm, I saw Dunkirk in IMAX 70mm. So I got this cool t-shirt. That's never really happened before. Never really got a t-shirt from seeing an IMAX movie at the theater. That I've been going to that theater since 1999, and this is the first time I've ever gotten a t-shirt. So thank you to Warner Brothers and Dunkirk and Regal Cinema for these awesome shirts, IMAX and 70mm. I would love to see more films projected on film. Yes. All right. Now that I've gotten all that out of the way, my final review, of course, you probably predicted it itself. I think this is one of the best films of 2017. I'm going to give Dunkirk, I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 4.